when it comes to the journey of life and finding our pace with faith, it can be an arduous one, especially if you've grown up in the church environment and maybe you checked out. Maybe you thought, hey, I don't know if this whole God thing is for me. Well, you're not alone. In fact, I was there myself, and I have invited a very special guest, a dear friend, Jason DiPietro. And he is going to hang out with Joe Thompson and myself. We're going to talk about this journey from a belief that, you know what, I don't have all the answers of space and what happens out in the cosmos and what happens here on Earth. But I'm willing to go wherever the road takes me to find answers, to find truth. And so this is a fun and endearing conversation, and I can't wait for you to listen in. I'm Dr. Nate Salah, and this is a call to leadership. Jason, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Nate.
Joseph.
It's nice to be here.
Nice to see you again.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Jason, we're so thrilled to have you on the show today as we talk about leadership, business, spiritual life, all that good stuff. You're definitely a precious member of our community, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It's a positive way, because you come from a little bit of a different perspective, right? You grew up in a family that had a strong faith, if you will, religious experience, and you moved away from that, and now you've been on this sort of journey that you've embraced to rekindle a spiritual walk, wherever that might take you, right?
Yep.
And so this is something that's fascinating because one of the things I love about you is that you have a clarity about you. You have a clarity in the way you speak, the way you think, in the way you behave, and it's partnered with decorum and care. And I'm not just saying this to make you feel good, warm you up for the yeah. But it's who you are. And so I want the listener to know of where I see you and how I've seen you. And Joe, of course, has worked with you very closely, especially as we're working on G3 and our platform and a lot of our internal operations as we get that launched. Where does that come from? Is that like family brought you, or these are your character traits, or is this like parents? Tell us about that part of life and coming up.
Probably from family, where it's community working together, helping everyone around you. Mm-hmm. If we had a family gathering and, somebody's working on a thing, it was like, sitting on the couch. My dad was like, get up, go help them. And, it's just, that's kind of carried through. And I like that. That's my happy place. Mm-hmm. It's just to always offer a hand to anybody in need. I like that a lot.
Your dad, you're close to your dad.
He's my hero.
Yeah. How so?
Because you can always count on him. He's always there for everyone. He will bend over backwards to help. And it's such a virtuous way to live. He's respected by everybody in his orbit, and I look up to that a lot.
Is that a family trait on his side too? Like, is it passed down to be helpful, and
yep.
He's continuing to do it with you?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you grew up on the East Coast?
The East Coast, yep. Upstate New York.
Upstate New York.
Yeah.
What's different between upstate New York and downstate New York? Are there distinctions?
It's better.
You don't often hear downstate.
We've got wine country.
It's always upstate.
We've got the lakes. It's a beautiful place.
Would you consider people from Manhattan a different culture?
Oh, dramatically.
Even upstate New York. I mean, there's a distinction.
Yeah. It's that population density difference. In a large city, it's a lot of get out of my way. I have stuff to do.
Because us in the Midwest, we generally, when we hear New York, we just think Manhattan. Like we think everybody in New York is like your typical stereotype of Manhattan. Like you said, get out of my way, horn, in a hurry. Everyone's a buffoon essentially. And I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying it's a bit of, is it not a stereotype?
Yeah. I think anytime you hear New York, you just think of the city.
Yeah.
You don't think of the state, like, or other people living around.
I have to specify when people ask where I'm from, I always say upstate New York, because otherwise people will tell me like, I always wanted to go. And I'm like, no, it's not New York. It's different.
Do people in upstate New York have your accent? You sound like you're from the Midwest. I'm just saying, it's a very Midwest accent.
I get mistaken for Wisconsin a lot. But yeah, it's like a different country from New York City. A lot of it is, family values, family oriented, right? Which I think is one of the big differences too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, being from Chicago, I've lost most of my Chicago accent, most of it. And the only time is if you're talking with someone from Chicago and you're like, oh, wait, those are some of the words that he says. But otherwise, in fact, when I would talk to my friends in Chicago, when I first moved to St. Louis, they told me I sounded like I was from the country. I was really offended by that. It was very offensive, Joseph. Even in St. Louis, there's different accents in St. Louis proper.
Oh, yeah. It's really obvious, too. Like, you could tell. So in St. Louis is the big word you go to high school, because once you know that, you know where they grew up, you understand almost everything about them. So
I see. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've been overseas sitting in a bar talking to someone, and a stranger will walk up to me and go, where are you from? And I'm like, Rochester. They're like, me too. That's how distinct the Rochester accent is.
Really?
Yeah. It's fascinating.
Fascinating. I love New York. I love the whole state. We've done a little bit of driving through the state of New York, and it is a very pretty state. It's a big state.
Huge.
Yeah. It's because, again, there's this sort of geographic block that many people have. And you've got a lot of beautiful scenery in New York. People don't realize that the Niagara Falls.
The Adirondacks.
The Adirondacks
are amazing.
Yeah. Well, there. Yeah. Makes you want to move to New York, Joe?
No, it just makes me want to get a comfortable chair.
Is that chair not comfy?
Adirondack.
Oh, dang. I missed that one a mile away.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a...
Ironically, they're not very comfortable to sit in.
No, they're not.
So when did you leave New York?
I moved to Florida for about 2 years. And then I lived in Boston for about 12.
Oh.
And then now I'm in Denver. I've been there about 7.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you have a favorite of those 4 places?
Probably Boston. But it was the time in my life as much as anything too, right? It was the first big city I'd moved to. I got to explore a lot of culture and things like that. It was a lot of fun. I don't think I'd want to live there now. Yeah. I think it's a little faster paced than I'm interested in.
Boston.
I think your age has a lot to do with how you remember things. I went to Denver when I was 21.
Yeah.
And then I went back in my 30s. There was this huge difference between what I remembered and like what I was doing there now. So I think that goes with any place you live, your age is dependent on what you're doing, what you're getting into. So,
and you were in IT for a while, is that correct? Or not necessarily in tech, in the tech, kind of tech,
yeah. I was a technician.
More than anything. Yeah, tech was in the name.
Yeah.
And then you became an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I've always been an entrepreneur.
Oh, let's hear about that. Always, I like that.
So my aunt and uncle had always espoused how great real estate was. And, they talked about the tax benefits and stuff like that. And, at 16 years old, I was like, what are tax benefits? I don't know what that means, right? And, but no, because they kind of put that in my ear, I bought my first duplex when I was like 19. And I moved into the kitchen of that place slept on the floor because it was the only room I could sanitize to make it.
You were young
enough. Yeah.
Did you buy it on your own?
Yeah.
Did you have a cosigner?
I bought it on my own.
Amazing.
But it was in a place where I could buy a duplex for $70,000
Still.
and 3% down. Back in those days.
Back in the FHA, you used to have FHA loan. Yeah.
Oh, it was an 80-10 mortgage or whatever those were. And it was
80-10-10. I owned a mortgage company for 10 years. I was not the reason why the housing crashed, but our office was definitely a part of it. Yeah, we were definitely partly responsible. Yeah, my Abrams said, "Dad, all of that's true. Is that true? What was that movie? The Big Short? Big Short? Yeah. He said, was that all that true?" I'm like, every word of it, son. Every word of it. So you're in the 19 in the rental real estate business. Fantastic. And so from there, did you have like just sort of trials with different kinds of businesses, or was it always real estate?
It was always real estate at the beginning. I started in high school bootlegging CDs. That was my first.
What, dude?
Yeah.
What is going
Hello. Bootlegging CDs.
Yeah. It was good money in high school.
That was the next generation. See, I bootleg cassette tapes at the flea market. Yeah. And you CDs. So how do you bootleg a CD? You just
you'd go pre-order from the shop, right? And then you'd have it a couple days before everybody.
Yeah.
Because I was a tech nerd, I had a CD burner and a label maker, and I sold them at school before they were out for like $5 a CD, and was like, good money.
Sweet. I mean, illegal, but sweet. Well, so was mine. Mine was highly illegal too. We would buy, because I know it's funny. It's a funny combo. We would buy, back in the day, cassettes were a little different. You'd buy them in bulk from a wholesale bootlegger.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get the equipment so that I could be the wholesaler. I was always trying to like cut out the middleman. I hate the word middleman, but
improve the margins.
Yeah, I want to improve the margins. Right. And everything I did, legal or illegal. And so I would go to the flea market, and if you don't know what a flea market is, you're listening. It's a place where it's not, I don't know how to call it a flea market, but it's like secondhand goods or
a farmer's market.
It can be like a farmer's market. Yeah, we have a place here in St. Louis called Soulard Farmer's Market. I would have to get there at like 5:30 in the morning on the weekend to get a good spot. But like, I was in high school as well, just trying to hustle, right? Make some bucks. Yeah. And I get all my tray. I had a tray of cassettes, and I'd sell them 1 for $3, 2 for $5. I'd have my boombox going and enticing people to come buy my stuff. Then I got into bootleg, not DVDs, because they didn't have DVDs back then. VHS. Yeah. I only had one run, and then it was over. I was the guy who I was selling it to. He had a spot next to me. I had made all of them. By the way, statute of limitations, Joseph. This is a long time ago. Then I sold them 250 of them. So I was going to sell them the other 250 the next day, and they got busted. And that was the end of that. Yeah. So illegal. So you were. I didn't know you were a hustler.
Always.
Yeah. So okay. So the bootlegs. This is great. We never talk about this stuff on the show. We're going to talk about God. We never talk about this stuff on the show.
Dude. Yeah, you've had a couple prospective businesses shut down by the law.
The feds. Yeah, I've had a few, man. This was BC, bro. Before Christ. Right? I mean, let's not open let's not open it up on air. No, but that's the thing. Like, we do things when we're young. We hopefully only when we're young, and then we get wiser.
Yep.
Right? We get wiser as we... This is also important, because this is really a question of what's leading us. What mentorship do we have? You talked about you being close to your dad and all that, and that's great. I didn't have... Most of my mentorship was less than ethical growing up, right?
Yep.
And so I didn't have those. It was okay, I guess. It was okay to do that kind of stuff until I had a different pathway, right? So you were selling the the bootlegs. How long did you do that for?
Probably a year or two.
You made a little bit of cash and then give it up?
Yeah.
All right. Then what?
Then I bought my first duplex.
Did you buy it with the stolen money from the...
It helped. It helped. And then I bought 2 more rental properties while I was there. And because my favorite game is the game of Monopoly.
Oh, I love Monopoly.
I literally owned 3 houses in a row on the corner. And I just wanted to have that because it was, I was young. I was like, this isn't even that good of a deal, but I want that 3rd one because it's cool. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you were really into it. I mean, you were really, it was a pathway for you.
Yep. I bought a couple in Boston when I lived there, condoized them, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Do you think for most entrepreneurs it starts off very young, like a very young mindset?
Yes.
Because we were very young and we did a few ventures here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And always shooting for that, that next thing, whatever it's going to be. I think it's a mindset that you're kind of born with it. Like, there's a lot of people who are fine going to work for a company, for 35 years and then retiring and getting the gold watch.
We need those people.
My nephew is like that. I can see he's always asking me about business ideas. He did a car cleaning business for a bit while he was in college. And he's got a good working gig right now, but I can tell every time I talk to him, he's like, and he's just looking for the thing, and I'm excited for him.
Yeah,
it's in him.
It's in. I think there's traits. There's definitely traits that are closely associated with the entrepreneurial levers, right? So resilience, self-determination, independence, problem solving. There's a number of what we would consider natural skills. Yeah. That are
when you see a kid pushing a lawnmower down the street in the summertime.
Oh yeah.
Like he's got an entrepreneurial spirit, right?
Yeah.
So I think it is something that happens to you when you're very young. You just don't realize it's going to take most of your life to like get it perfected. You know what I mean? If ever.
Good point. So then rental properties and then I guess a day gig, right?
Yeah.
So how many years ago did you get into the home healthcare business?
About 5.5 years.
Yeah.
Now. Yeah. And it was I've always wanted to like own a business and run a business, and I have a business degree, but I didn't know how to start a business. I didn't. The risk involved with inventing a thing didn't appeal to me. I didn't know what I was going to invent that everyone was going to want to buy. And I serendipitously met a franchise consultant when I moved to Denver. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So franchising really appealed to me. It's a business in a box, which is nice, right? It's like they show you, here's the system averages, 5 years, 10 years. And if that's the system average, if you're average intelligence and average hardworking, that's probably going to be your outcome. And as long as you picked the brand that, aligns with what you want to do, it's a great way to get started.
Yeah, don't pretend like average intelligence is an easy thing to find.
I think.
Because that. I didn't mean to look at you when I said
You looked
that.
right at me.
I was just.
You looked right at me.
You know where I'm coming from because you know who I deal with. So
you picked that business.
Yeah.
And you thought, okay, this is good.
Yep.
Well, okay, and then what happened?
So, in the interim, I started another business with a friend of mine, and but at this point, the home care business I've realized I've really enjoyed. It's been super fulfilling. I get to help people. The more people I help, the more money I make.
Yeah.
That's like a win. But I've realized that I want to pivot and do different things. Yeah. And so I'm in the process of an exit right now, which is exciting.
So. I have a question for you. So as you start a business and you end them and start them and end them, which we all have in this room, what do you think is like the driving force that makes you like pick up again and move on?
Yeah.
Because, sometimes when you're doing a business, even if it's successful, it's kind of depleting on you.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you end that and now you go into something else, you got to almost re-energize for it, because I got to take on this project all over again, like I'm starting from scratch.
Yeah.
I know where I call from to get that kind of boost. How do you do it?
For me, when I take on a new venture, it's partially, for the financial gain of it, right? That's why we're in business. But I like to grow my skill set. So I feel like with the home care agency, I've gotten everything out of it I needed to build my skills. And then as I pick my next venture, it's to build a new set of skills. And then it's exciting again. I think that's where sometimes people get hung up with just the money of things, because money, you can make money and you can make more money, and you can make more money, but you're not accomplishing anything at a certain point, right? Maybe more cars, more boats or something. More stuff. But for me, it's like, I want to build my skills to be able to help other people. And the more skills I have, the more people I can help.
That's interesting.
Yeah, the more marketable you are. That's the thing about your offering, if you will, right? What's my irresistible offer? It's really how I can help people to solve their problems. I mean, that's essentially your value. And you think about it, like in Jesus' day, there's so much physical and spiritual infirmity in his day. You think about that, right? So many people were having physical issues as well as spiritual, mental, emotional, right? And of course, the financial, right? All of that. And he comes on the scene at a time where people need to get nourished, whether it's spiritual nourishment or emotional nourishment or physical nourishment in terms of, and of course, understand how all these things work together. And so his, if you will, if I say this non-sacrilegiously, his market value, his street cred, right, is magnified intensely by the people who need that. And his message and the way he shares it is so different than anything or any way anyone had heard to that day. And that's why he was one of the reasons why he was so compelling. But he met people right where they were. He didn't judge. He didn't shame. He was there to shape. He wasn't there to condemn. He was there to consecrate. And in that, people were drawn to him. And I think in a very similar way, in the marketplace today, we can learn from that. We can learn from that and say, how are people healed? By the skills that I possess, right? My time, talent, and treasures. And then how do I share that? And so your plight, man, I want to encourage, not only this is just not to encourage you, of course it's encouraging. However, the listener, same thing. Money is important. It's necessary. It is essential, right? Can't get very far without it. But it's not the thing. The thing is what we do with our hands, our feet, our minds to help heal people of whatever infirmity that they're facing. Whether it's, in your case, you've learned so much about franchising. You've learned so much through your journey, and you're such an astute person that you've taken these amazing notes, and now you have the ability to help walk people down this journey, right? And you've already begun to do that naturally. Oh, somebody's got a question just today, right? One of my clients is like, hey, I'm getting ready to perhaps get a franchise. Like, oh, you need to talk to Jason. And Jason's like, hey, sure, let me walk you through some of this. And that way you have better information, better knowledge on how to make a wiser choice.
Yeah, I moved through different industries myself. So that is what enables me to do what I do today. Like if I consult a business, because you keep increasing your knowledge, you see how different businesses work. You also see the similarities between them, which a lot of times the mistakes that are made are the same mistake from one business to the next. And I decided that I love growing things. So I even garden because I just love like growing things, planting those seeds, growing them. And businesses are kind of like the same thing. I love to grow them and see them grow. So that was a real, that was a tough decision to leave something really steady in a corporate world and go out and do that. So it takes a little bit of bravery.
100%.
To move from one thing to the next.
And here's the other thing you've experienced. You've experienced the ups and the downs of it, right? We all know this. It ain't easy being cheesy, right? Chester Cheetah had it right. And the people need to hear that. They need to hear, look, here's the troubles I face. Here's the challenges. I love doing this. I hated doing that, right? Mm-hmm. And you also have to find where your genius is. Otherwise, you will consistently not only let yourself down, you're going to let everyone else down unless you live in your genius. For me, I can manage. It's not my love. It really is. It never was. So when I first started, okay, so the first person I hired was Henry, okay? Old friend, high school friend of mine, right? And Henry, I was like...
There's a lot of history.
Yeah, a lot of history, right? So Henry... old buddy from high school. I'm like, hey, I'm giving you a job. So, because I thought I was going to be like a big shot entrepreneur. Now, this is my check cashing booth, right? It's in the hood where actually I met Joe in the hood because that's where I used to live. And so it was check cashing, money orders, lotto, taxes. We bought jewelry. If you had, a diamond or, a chain, I had my little, it could tell you if it was real or not. And I had my bulletproof glass. You had to slide stuff underneath it. Metal booth, all that. So I was like, Henry, giving you a job. Why? Because I thought I was going to be a big shot entrepreneur, right? You got to have employees if you're going to be a big shot entrepreneur. I hired him, and then I told him, I'm going to be the boss. You're the employee, and that's how we're going to do it. So he's like, sure, he's got a job, right? And then he told me one day, he said, Nate, here I got an idea about improving the business. I said, Henry, I don't pay you to think. I pay you to work. What a bonehead. This is just something I must have read or saw in a movie or something. I must have watched a gangster movie or something. What just like the dumb things you say when you're a new entrepreneur. Not that all new entrepreneurs say that, but I was definitely wet behind the ears. In that journey, of course, I learned better skills, right? Better communication skills, et cetera, et cetera. However, in that journey, I also learned, I can manage, but I don't prefer it. I prefer to do two things. I prefer to be an artist and perfect my craft, and to lead and to share large vision and to motivate and to prepare people for the journey ahead. That's really my genius. And I need to live in that genius, right? And like you, it's the same thing. And I think we need to make sure that entrepreneurs know, or anyone knowing that they're getting into, whether it's a franchise or a business, like, what is your God-given strength or the strengths that you have? Like, own those. And the first question, people are going to ask, well, I can't afford to outsource or pay people for the areas that I'm not strong in. What's our response? What's our response? Well, I mean, how would you respond to someone? Hey, maybe you can't afford not to, right?
For me, it's like my first thing I do in business is I identify what I enjoy doing. And then I find other people that enjoy doing the things I don't enjoy doing. And then everybody in the organization is doing what they like doing. That seems like a winning mix, right?
Yeah, because that's where motivation comes in.
And they'll stay. They'll be happy. Like, if I'm happy, they're happy. Yeah.
Increases effort levels too. Right?
Yeah. Sometimes with third parties, you got to think of it more as an investment instead of you're hiring somebody. Mm-hmm. Really investing in your business. And if you want to increase your bottom line, sometimes you have to spend. So usually when I'm met with, I can't afford you or blah, 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 I will tell them, well, I'll take a percentage of whatever we make together. Like, how's that? And That way I have a stake in it. They have a stake in it. So
I was going to tell you, bro, 90%, that's kind of steep.
Well, it's a big investment, Would you rather have...
Yeah, 10% of something or 90% of something, right? Yeah,
10% of a watermelon
or 100%.
100% of a grape.
This guy, he's here all week. So in our community, you've been a part of our community for a long time now, and as we've moved into a real faith infused journey, you've embraced the call, if you will, to walk, right? To walk alongside of us and everyone's by the way, they're at a different stage of the walk, right? And interestingly, and I want to come to this because it's important to share with our listeners, especially the listener who's like in the same place you are.
Yeah.
Interestingly, many of Jesus's disciples early on were in the exact same place that we're going to describe with Jason and other listeners. Think about it, Joe. Right? Think about the first thing Jesus said was to most of his disciples, his students, were, "Follow me." Right? By the way, no miracles performed. No, super cool stuff like walking on water or, turning all this, a couple fish to many or water to wine and all this other stuff. It was really a calling like, hey, I've got some answers for you that I think will help you in this journey of life. Because you may be in a situation to where you're not only unfulfilled, but you believe that there's a greater sense of purpose. And I'd like to walk with you to discover that.
There was a hesitation in their answer too, because throughout the Bible, even like after the miracles are performed, there's still a lot of times where they're like, is this guy who he says he is? You know what I mean? And they're like right there with him, and they're watching all of it, they're seeing all of it, and there's still hesitation. And I don't think okay, I'm probably wrong, but I don't think there's many Christians that at some point in their life didn't consider that possibly there's nothing there.
Say that one more time for our listeners.
So I think whether you're Christian or whatever religion you are, I think there's a point in your life where you kind of question, it's a good story, but is it real?
You weren't there.
Right?
I mean, at the end of the day, we weren't there. We have to take anything that we're not there for and we can't see with our own eyes. And even today, we see stuff with our own eyes and deep fake and all this other stuff. It may not be real, right?
I can't believe it.
Yeah. That we have to take on faith, right? That's the nature of having a belief in something that you have not observed directly, right? That's a lot of what we're talking about, right?
And that's why he called on fishermen and tax collectors and not rabbis and priests. That's why he made that calling, because they were regular guys.
And prostitutes, by the way. Hello.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like a very, what would you call it? A seedy group, right? Like think about it.
Dirty dozen.
Think about it. This is really important. I don't think we've talked about it on the show. This is think about it just for a second. You're a rabbi. You're a teacher, right? Of the law, of the holiness. We talked about, and we'll talk a little bit about our Be Holy Challenge. So you think, I'm going to pick people who will represent this exquisitely. I'm going to go to the brothels.
Right.
Right. I'm going to go to the seashore, right?
Genius.
These are people who are unschooled. Now, there are some who are, there were a few zealots, and Nathaniel was certainly very religious. However, the majority of them were, and some of them were not necessarily even focused on religion. They just wanted to overthrow the Romans. There's a guy named Judas who was pretty zealous. You might have heard of him. So all that said, it's just a real interesting mix. It's a fascinating mix of people who were sometimes they probably even question, do I even belong in a air quotes, a religious group. And what does Jesus say? He's like, this isn't a religious group. This isn't a religious community. This is a community of relationship. And in that, that's how he begins. And so we bring this to our current context of what we're doing with G3 and our grow, give, go model. Grow purposefully, give generously, go, love radically, right? Those are our three components. And as you hear them, Jason, and maybe as you heard them for some of the first times, what was going through your mind?
So one thing that really appealed to me about the group in general is because I have this intrinsic need and drive to like help people around me, right? It's just, I felt like I've always been that way. And as I've looked around at the world, there's a lot of people that are just very self-serving, right? Their only focus is their own enrichment, right? And we're all people. We have our own selfish things. But then when I joined G3, it was so interesting to me to see all these other people that actually see the world like me. They have a different name to it, right? And a different purpose, from the spiritual, religious standpoint. But the values are still aligned of like, yeah, I like want to be better so I can give back to my community. And that was like such an amazing thing to see. And I love that alignment. So yeah, it was perfect.
So Jason, we've discussed this at length before about, Christianity and, it not being a religion, more faith-based. And you had told me about this need to help people, like this calling to help people. Yeah. And I said, the only difference between you and the rest of us when we think about calling is that you're not certain where it's from yet. Like what's driving it? Is it an external thing? Is it just internally inside of you? You want to talk about that at all?
So before I joined the group, I would have described myself as agnostic. And, I always had this like understanding of I can't prove or disprove any more than anyone else can, right? And what being in this group has helped me realize is I'm not agnostic. I'm spiritual. I just don't have a name for it. Mm-hmm. So I feel that drive to go out and do good, right? And it's very interesting because it's as I sit with you guys and I talk to you guys, it's like we feel the same thing, we just call it a different thing. And I really appreciate it. And it's given me some nudge to just kind of put more thought to my own spirituality and that. So
I love that. I love that. And even the language, like you said, it's language, right? We're looking at different ways to express the behavior that is life-giving, right? And we use all kinds of language. We even look at the original Greek on things, which is super cool. We've had several episodes on it. It's been fantastic. The one thing that I think is a game changer and how you're doing it, you do good. This third mandate, the go, which is obviously an action word. They're all action words. But the go, love radically. That term, had you heard the term love radically or radical love? Can you remember hearing that term prior to being a part of this community?
Yes, I've heard the concept before, but not an application of it exactly.
Important. It's important. Application is really important because that's where, when Jesus is being questioned and he's talking about, what the commandments are and how it's all summed up, right? It's summed up in love. He says love God, love people. Like that's the journey, and not just any people, not people who are like you. In fact, people who are maybe unlike you, people who you may not like at all.
People that are diametrically opposed to you.
Yes.
Even.
That's why it's radical.
Yeah.
Because it fundamentally alters and transforms, you're talking about language, the meaning of love. Because in the past, we would just say, well, you should love people who love you. But what does Jesus say? He says, like, that's not enough. Like, that's people who don't walk like we walk, do that kind of stuff. We have to be set apart. And that was this whole be holy challenge. That's our entrance exam, if you will, to the community. And that's why it's not for everyone, at least for everyone that isn't ready to accept that challenge. You think, well, who could be holy, right? I mean, that's a weird thing to ask someone, especially a business person. Like, where does that come from? Why? But when you break it down, it means to be set apart, right? To be set apart for a divine purpose that's beyond ourselves. And then you're like, oh yeah, of course I want to be set apart. And not necessarily because I'm better than anyone else, but because I don't want to just be the status quo. Because the status quo never worked in business. When have you ever said, hey, guess what? Here's our business model. We're going to do everything the exact same way as everyone else. There's no differentiation. There's nothing about us that is better. That doesn't fly. I mean, imagine like commercials like that. What would you like if you were watching a Doritos commercial?
You're a very average chip. We taste just like the off-brand chip. In fact, we're more expensive than that one. So
that's how we're different. So the Be Holy Challenge, how did you interpret that? As someone who's, early on the journey, if you will.
You're going to put me on the spot. Because we've talked about this.
Getting tougher now.
We are 40 minutes in.
Yeah, so initially it really took me. A lot of the other concepts we talked about, I've connected with very quickly. I was like, okay, yep, got it. The Be Holy one, it took me a while to kind of figure out what that meant. And I'd ask you to explain it to me, and you'd explain it with a look on your face of like, did you get it yet? And I'm like, no, I haven't. I'm working on it. I promise. But the idea of it's to be set apart, really, I think is the best way to describe it, because, to be holy it's not an individual thing. It's a way of being, right? And I think that the radical love is, to me, is like a large part of it, because, it's even in the face of adversity, conflict, anything. I think a lot of people's natural propensity is to condemn or speak poorly or wish ill on someone who opposes them or has wronged them or whatever it is. And the ability to go, you know what, that's okay. I wish you the best. I don't think we're going to continue this interaction. That's fine. But hey, I hope you find your way. Like, to me, that's a big part of it.
That's it. That hits it, doesn't it, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jesus solved the world's problem in one small verse when he said, love your enemies. I mean,
3 words, bro.
Can you imagine
3 words.
if that actually happened? Like, if people could empty themselves out enough to do that, like, or
yeah, I know we gloss over it, right? Because we've heard it so much, but just stop.
Yeah,
like because, your enemy.
Right now, you have people you don't like, right? Maybe you don't like them. Like, how do you get yourself to love them? Like to love that person, regardless of what they've done to you, because to Jesus, it doesn't matter what anyone does to you.
Pretty much, yeah.
You just gotta love them. And he still did love radically, like even like during his crucifixion.
Very first words. Forgive them. I mean,
it's
so radical.
They're just other people. They have different belief systems or different understandings, and it doesn't make them even wrong. Maybe you're wrong and they're your enemy, right? And you have to understand that and recognize that if I saw the world the way that they see it, I very well may be taking those same actions.
Yeah. And there's nothing expressed that they have to love you back.
No.
Because they may not love you back, but the onus is on them to follow that command themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But man, when you're in business like we are, there's a lot of times you butt heads with people at different concepts, different things you want to do. There's politicking and ego, and it's really a big playground for practicing this, like, love your enemy. Because sometimes your enemy is just sitting across the table from you, and you're both working on the same thing, just in completely opposite directions, right? And you're like, man, this guy is just really on my nerves. But like, if you really could love that person and start to see it from their perspective, even if they're wrong, you still love them, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like it's so easy, right?
It sounds like
but it's tough, man. And part of my journey, like a big part of my Be Holy journey, is really letting go of some of the stuff, my baggage and stuff from the past, where like I've fought with people or butted heads with people. So I think about that as part of my Be Holy journey, that forgiveness part. So that's a huge part of my journey.
That's got a nice ring to it. We need to put that into like a journal. Be Holy journey. Your Be Holy journey.
Be Holy journey. It's so different for everybody.
Yeah. Jason, if you were someone listening, like, wow, it sounds like you guys are doing something cool. What would you say to somebody who is like considering wanting to be a part of our community, getting plugged in? What would you say to them about your experience?
The feeling that you have that you're like alone in your journey is you just need to surround yourself with the right people. It is a large part of it, because you can struggle, and you can talk to your friends and family and loved ones, and they may love and support you, but not all of them are on that journey necessarily, right? And to be surrounded by people who are on that journey to be holy is so fulfilling.
Yeah.
Because if you mess up, you can always look at me and know, well, he's struggling with it too.
Yeah. Look at you.
Yeah.
Well, we're thankful for you. We're thankful you're on this journey with us. We're thankful to be on this journey with you. And I radically love you as my brother, my friend, and I'm so glad that we're connected. And you too, Joe.
You're okay.
Two Italians. Love you. Two Italians.
I love you, Jason. Nate, you're okay. You're okay.
Okay.
You're good.
Joe's got better hair.
You're the okayest guy.
Yeah, and you guys both fixed your hair up for the for the podcast.
It's not right.
You turn the lights down a little bit for us.